When Saucony first launched the Endorphin capsule, the two top shoes, the Endorphin Speed and the Endorphin Pro, were well received. But the third spot in the rotation, Saucony has never quite figured out how to fill that spot. Until now. This is the Endorphin Azura, and it's time to take it for a run. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kofuzi and I'm a non-elite runner who reviews running shoes here on YouTube. And today I want to talk to you guys about the Saucony Endorphin Azura. But before I give you my thoughts on this shoe, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that Saucony sent to me for the purpose of review, so I didn't have to pay for these shoes. However, nobody's paying me to make this video or to include their brand in this video, and no one had a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys had a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Endorphin Azura, and let's start with the specs. This is a tall shoe, 40 millimeters of stack height in the heel with an 8 millimeter drop, giving us 32 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot. And there is one and only one thing in this shoe, and that is Power Run PB. It's a beaded PBA foam, and otherwise there's no shank, there's no plate, there's no other stabilizing elements. Now, to protect all this midsole foam, there is XT900, which is Saucony's outsole rubber compound. We've got two skids of rubber on the heel. The lateral heel side, or the outer heel side, is filled in to give us a little bit more protection on an extremely high wear area. And then there are 3 fingers of rubber in the forefoot of the shoe to give us some grip in the forefoot where we're going to need some traction on push off. Onto the upper, we have a really nicely designed upper. Saucony uppers can be extremely comfortable and very functional when Saucony wants them to, and this is one of those instances. I went true to size with my regular running shoe size on this shoe, and it felt great for me. Plenty of room for all my toes, but also still felt snug or appropriately snug of a shoe of this category. Now, we got a very breathable dual layer mesh on the forefoot here, and some overlays to help with a little bit of structure on the shoe, but nothing too crazy. I'm loving kind of the Art Deco inspired design that they've started with, I think, the Endorphin Speed 5, and they're carrying it through into the midsole and upper design of this shoe. There's a very little amount of padding in this tongue, which I think, again, is appropriate for this type of shoe, and the amount of padding through the heel cup is minimal, again, which I think is a very nice element of restraint. There is a noticeable cup in the back of the shoe, but it's not the most rigid or the most obtrusive of cups that are in here. Altogether, this shoe comes in at a very nice weight for a shoe of this size, 8.5 ounces or 240 grams. Now that we've talked about what the shoe is like on paper, let's talk about what it's like on the road. First, I want to say I really like the Endorphin Azura. So I mean it as the highest compliment when I say that this is really kind of a mullet of a shoe. It's like a tall version of Endorphin Speed up front and then a taller version of the Triumph in the back. And it's put together in a way that just really works for me, where we're getting an excellent combination of cushion and bounce, although I'd say we're getting a lot more bounce than we are cushion, because even though this is a tall shoe, it's not like a max cushion sink in comfort kind of max cushion shoe. There's a level of density here that makes the shoe feel tall, stable, and predictable, and also a little bit on the firm side for a shoe that's this big. But I'd say because of the rigid rocker that they have in the front of the shoe rolls really nicely. So for those of you who are midfoot or heel strikers and tend to push off after you roll through that foot strike, you're gonna find that the mechanics of this Endorphin Azura work really well for you. But even if you're not a midfoot or heel striker, you're really going to enjoy the forefoot of the shoe like I enjoy the forefoot of the shoe, because the Power Run PB is working in a really nice way to give this shoe a lot of bounce, even if you're not rolling through on that foot strike. So it's an enjoyable shoe that I think a lot of types of runners are going to be able to enjoy. So while I might not use it for my recovery run, max cushion kinds of days, this is a shoe that I could easily reach for on daily training day, my everyday runs, and for some workouts as well, because it's decently light. But I think that this shoe is ideally suited as a long run shoe, and that's that subcategory of daily trainer that I think is kind of tall like a max cushion shoe, but peppy like an up-tempo shoe. And it works really well when you've got a long run where it's either all up-tempo tempo or just portions of it at maybe up to marathon type efforts. So on those days where I want to run a lot of miles, but also run a little bit faster as well, this is where I think a shoe like the Endorphin Azura really shines. But on a lot of the rest of the days on my week as well, this is a shoe that I'm going to be able to run well in. Now, initially, when I just looked at the shoe and kind of heard the name Endorphin Azura, because that was kind of a strange name. The other shoes in the Endorphin capsule are called Endorphin Speed, Endorphin Pro, and then there's also the Endorphin Elite. So where did the Azura come from? It comes from an old shoe that Saucony used to make, and they're retroing it now. This is the original Saucony Azura, and it's a stability model of shoe. It's even got a patent marked on the bottom of the shoe, which is a 1985 patent, which surely has expired by now. But my main point is that this was initially a stability shoe. So when they're reaching back into their archives to talk about a stability shoe, it had me worried that this Endorphin Azura might just be another attempt at the same thing that Saucony has been trying to shoehorn into that final spot in the Endorphin lineup. First, we had the Endorphin Shift, which was not marketed as a stability shoe, but it was one of the most stabilized stability shoes that I'd ever run in, whether it was marked that way or not. And that was followed then by the Endorphin Trainer, which was a very confusing shoe and really seemed kind of like a reworked Kinvara Pro. So there was a lot of weird things that Saucony was trying to put into that third spot in the Endorphin lineup. And I thought with Azura as the namesake, I thought surely this one was going to be stabilized as well, especially because we've got this black line that runs through it that kind of looks like maybe it's a stabilizing feature, preventing either supination or creating some extra rigidity. I thought maybe this was a plate that was put in here that we could see through in a little bit of a window, but it turns out this is just black paint on a design in this midsole foam. And really what we're seeing is kind of a lateral side cutaway to allow the shoe to actually bend a little bit more and to do the opposite of stabilize what's going on in this shoe. Because for me, the Endorphin Azura feels like it's a neutral shoe, which makes it so that I can actually enjoy running in it. But most importantly for me, it makes a lot of sense in the Endorphin lineup. So if you've got the Endorphin Speed for some of your faster daily training days, but mostly your workout days, and you've got the Endorphin Pro or the Endorphin Elite as your race day shoe, then what is the kind of like everyday shoe that you're using for just like your regular miles or something that you might want to use on the weekend for that long run? I feel like the Endorphin Azura fits really nicely into that final spot, and it finally is an Endorphin capsule that makes sense. Now let's wrap up this video by going over the buying guide, and we'll also discuss some alternatives. The Saucony Endorphin Azura is a high stack height long run shoe that is excellent for daily training runs, long runs, and especially long runs with some speed. And if you've been waiting for Saucony to finally fix that third spot in the Endorphin lineup, the Endorphin Azura is definitely it. This shoe will become available February 1st, 2026 at a retail price of $150. Last year, the Adidas Evo SL was my shoe of the year because it was a versatile shoe that I could recommend to a wide variety of runners, and it was a refreshing change from other shoes we had seen in the space, and it had an excellent price of $150. The Endorphin Azura is a versatile shoe that I can recommend to a wide variety of types of runners, and is a refreshing change of pace from what we've seen from Saucony in that final Endorphin spot. And it also has an excellent $150 price point at a time when shoes are just becoming more and more expensive. So it's certainly going to be in the top shoes at the end of the year in 2026. But let's also take a look at what the competition has to offer out there to see where the 150 of the Endorphin Azura stacks up. Now, when it comes to long run shoes right now, as of early 2026, the shoe that I think is the shoe to beat comes from ASICS, and this is the Megablast. This is a shoe that's using aliphatic TPU, so kind of a next gen foam, and they're using it in a daily training type of application. And I'd use these two shoes exactly the same way. They're tall shoes that don't feel like max cushion soft shoes, but they're ideal for putting in daily training miles, but especially speedy long run miles. Now, the Megablast has a more energetic foam, and I think that it's a little bit more geared towards midfoot, forefoot strikers, and maybe not as friendly towards heel strikers as the Endorphin Azura might be. The Megablast is also going to be a lot more neutral, a lot more flexible, which is a plus for me, but for someone that is drawn to the Endorphin Azura is probably going to be a negative. And the Megablast is a lot lighter than the Endorphin Azura is, so if you are planning on using this for speedy long runs, I do think that is something you have to take into consideration. But I also think a very big consideration for this shoe is the price. The Megablast, as much as I love this shoe, is very expensive, weighing in at $225. And then the other shoe that I think is worth considering is another shoe that I think is doing a lot with a tall stack height and a beaded foam. And that shoe is from Salomon. This is the Aero Glide 3. And I think that people that are drawn to the underfoot feel of the Azura are also going to like the underfoot feel of the Aero Glide. But I do think that the Aero Glide is a little bit more dense than even the Azura is, and I think that it doesn't roll through quite as nicely as the Azura does. Even though they have the same heel drop, 8 millimeters from heel to forefoot, there are some differences in the geometry that make the Aero Glide feel a little bit more chill and relaxed of a shoe. I'd really use it for daily training, but if it was a speedier long run, I would definitely be reaching for the Endorphin Azura instead. So depending on what you're looking for in your daily training shoes, that is how I would decide between these two. Now, the Salomon Aero Glide retails for $160, which is more than what the Endorphin Azura is, but this shoe's been out for a little while now, so you can find it for $120. And again, that might be another reason why you might pick one or the other. Both of these shoes are going to be really good values at those price points. So those are my thoughts on the Endorphin Azura. Long story short, you should probably try this shoe. If you have any other questions about this shoe or any of the shoes that I talked about today, feel free to put them in the comments down below, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Mondays and Thursdays over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to see you guys over there in the chat. That's all for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?